Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by Onyx Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is Onyx Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, Onyx Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust Onyx Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about Onyx, go to onyxmaps.com/hunt and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys, if you're in the market for a new hunting rifle this coming year, look no further than a Kelbly's rifle. I've been rocking their Koda rifle for the last couple seasons, and I've had great success with it. It's an amazing shooter, and every time I put one of their rifles in somebody's hands, they're like, oh, I got to get one of these. Kelbly's holds over 92 world and national records that are either broken or set on one of their actions or rifles. So they really set a higher level of accuracy. If you want to know more about Kelbly's rifles, go to kelbly.com. That's KELBLY.com. Tell them Johnny Mac sent you with Soul Seekers, and go enjoy shooting that much more in this coming hunting season. Be blessed, everybody. Go check out Kelbly Rifles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mac. Tonight, I'm joined by my good buddy and hunting partner of the South, Flatland Singleton. And tonight, we are diving into a topic that I'm passionate about, as if you have been following along on my social media stories, you've seen that I've started to dive into trapping down here in the state of Texas. And we caught our first animal in a live cage trap a little over a week ago, and that was a skunk. We're going to talk about that and how we were able to dispatch it without it spraying and all that stuff. So we're going to be diving into that. But our guest for tonight is the legend of the South himself, Mr. Byron South. And we're going to be diving into all things trapping, specifically focusing on bobcats. So without further ado, Mr. South, how are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm real good. Now that you call me a legend, I don't know if I can live up to that.
Well, you know what? If you can't be a legend in your own mind, how could you ever be a legend in anyone else's, right? You gotta start with yourself, apparently.
That's a long thought.
But you gotta have a certain amount of confidence, or you don't even get started good.
I love it. That is the truth. The first one is always the hardest.
Yes, sir.
Just taking that first step. All right, so
I agree with that.
So we are covering trapping tonight. One of the things, before we dive into some of the questions I have lined up for you, is I want to just speak to the listeners of this podcast to understand that when it comes to wildlife conservation and the defending of the pastime that we love, I had a question raised to me that said, well, why can't hunters do catch and release? Why do hunters have to kill? Or, and I started to think about that quite a bit, and it brought to my mind the idea of trapping and running hounds, because that is a hunter's version of being able to identify an animal and decide whether or not you want to keep it or you want to let it go back into the wild. So before we dive into the whole trapping concept, I want to throw that out there for you so that you actually have words to be able to defend hunting, trapping, and the pursuits that we enjoy without feeling scared or not knowledgeable about the subject, because we need to defend all avenues of hunting, not just one specific type. So
I'm glad you I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll just throw this in. Trapping, the connotation or the image that a lot of people have in their mind that, it's this big trap with teeth on it and it's brutal and all. And just to give you an example, our traps are like, I tell people they're like a handcuff. I mean, and if I catch a dog, I can turn the dog loose, and I caught a bird dog 2 or 3 days ago. I turned him loose, and he wasn't even limping. So, I mean, we have the luxury with the traps nowadays. It's not, like, the old, trapping days where, they were big, brutal traps. I mean, I trap a lot of high fence properties with some very expensive deer and exotic animals in there. And I can't damage those animals. So, but I've still got to remove the coyotes. And, a lot of people, I just want to say to any of your listeners, be careful of what you repeat, because there's a lot of false information out there about the trapping. But it is a very solid, valid conservation tool that's not utilized enough, especially in the state of Texas. I mean, because the trapping, and I really kudos to you putting out the trapping, out to the masses and stuff, because it's really a dying breed. The guys that are doing that,
Yep.
They're efficient at it. And so we've got to kind of pass that along, those skills, so it doesn't die, because it's such a valid tool. And a lot of guys like to call in coyotes, and that's how kind of, I'm known as a caller, but there's nothing more efficient than traps. Traps work 24/7, whether you're there or not. So calling, you're just there for a few minutes and you're gone.
I love that. And I love that you can speak to it, because this is, this podcast got started because I wanted to learn more how to hunt, and getting into conversations with people to talk about, tips, tactics, and a whole lot more about making myself a better person. Well, now I've kind of reached this level within my hunting journey that I've killed a few animals, I've had some success. I want to become a better outdoorsman. I want to become a better woodsman. I want to understand animals that much more. And what's the next step after hunting, right? You could go to archery, you could go to trad archery, you could go to longbow, but ultimately, the real test of a woodsman is trapping. Right, that's what settled the West. Is it paved the way by all the fur trappers heading out there.
Sure did.
So, how many years of experience have you been trapping? Or go ahead, say what you're gonna say.
Years of experience. I'll turn 60 on my next birthday in September, and I can't remember not trapping. So 50 something years, I guess. I can't even believe I heard that come out of my mouth. I guess one of my old guys, but I'm more of a forward-looking guy. I don't look back.
Yep.
But I don't feel like I'm 60. So I'm a high mileage late model, 64 model.
I love it. So what you're saying is that you're not 60 years old. You're level 60 in the game of life. You're keep on leveling up.
Yeah. I'm the new 40.
There you go.
Trapping, I'll tell you this, one of the reasons I kind of gravitated in my career to coyotes is because of my passion for the outdoors. And I like that you mentioned, being a woodsman. There's so many hunters today, we want instant success. And so we YouTube something and we go out there and expect to be successful, and over a weekend, or we feel like we've been robbed. And I was a type that I didn't want to just go on a weekend. And, and I didn't want to go just in deer season. So I had to find something that would keep me busy 12 months out of the year. And I was fortunate enough, I grew up on a farm and ranch. And so I had access to a lot of property. So, there's a lot of weekend trappers or weekend hunters and stuff. And God bless them. I mean, a guy's got to feed his family and do what you can for your family. But I've always been kind of a sorry individual that I figured I was going to figure out a way that I can make a living doing what I love. Because honestly, I don't work at all. I mean, I do what I enjoy every day, and it's a job. It's a lot of, it takes a toll on you. But I enjoy getting up like in the morning. I've got traps I've got to go check, and it's like Christmas morning. I don't know what I've got under the tree, And so I still never lost that passion, because coyotes, bobcats, fox, all those are a very challenging animal. And, I can boil it down. The trapping is really easy. All you have to do is put that trap where he's going to step. That's it.
Simple enough, right?
So you've got to just figure out and get inside his head and what he's going to do. And the other thing about trapping is patience. It teaches an enormous amount of patience and teaches you how to pay attention to the details, because I've got to make him step on a 3-inch circle. And so there's just, and we won't get into the weeds and all the specifics about it, but it makes you a better hunter. It makes you a better woodsman. It makes you a better deer hunter. I don't care if you're a duck hunter. You pay attention to the details. I was telling a guy the other day, we were setting some traps, and the guy wanted to go with me, and I cut some cat tracks. And I was looking, I said, that cat, I mean, he just come through here. So we sat down, was making a trap, setting a trap, and I heard a bunch of blue jays. And I told him, I said, that cat's right over there. And he goes, well, how do you know that? And I said, you hear those blue jays? Like, blue jays can't stand that cat, and that cat just walked down this road. I guarantee you he's right over there, because them blue jays are fussing at him. And so he goes, really? I said, yeah, let's go around to this other side and we'll call that cat in. And so we went around there, and here comes the cat, walks right in there and shot. And he's like, and I thought, well, to me, that was simple. But to him, it was like one of the biggest things to him. And I thought, it kind of made me realize, look, I'm out there every day and I see this stuff, but it's the same thing. You have to pay attention to the details, the little stuff, and it'll make you you just got to be honed in, and that's not stuck in your phone, or or you just got to hone into it. And so that's the secret to it, is the details.
Yeah, modern society pushes us to want and need and desire instant gratification right away. Like, oh shoot,
Sure.
like I did my first year of Texas hunting for deer. I was originally a Western big game hunter. Go hike in, go glass. You'll see some animals, maybe you won't, but when you think of Southern whitetail hunting, it was like, oh, there's a feeder. It's like clockwork. The feeder goes off,
Sure.
dinner bell, the deer come in, all that. It's not like that. I had to actually put in a lot of work and a lot of time afield before I was able to take my first deer. What I realize is there's a lot of carryover in the outdoors as being a hunter. Hunter, trapper, same thing. Like, you have to pay
Sure.
attention. You can't have your face in a phone. You can't focus on instant gratification. The more days you spend afield, the better you're gonna get. And I think trapping is like that instant of. Funny I use the word instant since we're talking not instant, but that opportunity where it forces you to have to go out consistently, and the more you're out, the better you get, and you sharpen that learning curve that much quicker.
It is a commitment. Trapping is one thing people don't understand. New trappers, I mean, they think it's like a hunter can take off on the weekend and go on a hunting trip, and then come in on a Sunday and and go back to work Monday. Trapping, it's a commitment. Like, when I set a trap, I set that trap. And it's probably going to be there. Most of my trap jobs I do are 10 to 14 days, and I'll set a trap on the first day, and I may not catch anything that whole 14 days in that trap, but I'll set enough in places where I think they're going to be, and I won't touch it. You just have to have patience, and it's kind of a numbers game, but you can't force them. You have to let them do what they do. And so it's a commitment. When you set that trap, we just suffered some bad weather, and those guys, I had traps out and the roads were closed and stuff. And guys were saying, hey man, don't worry about it. When it thaws out, go run your trap. And guys, it don't work that way. I mean,
Right.
oh, it's just a coyote. And I go, besides, even if it's a possum, it's alive, and I don't want him. I couldn't imagine being in a trap,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having to suffer through that. I'm going to check my traps, but I knew, I watched the weather. I knew it was coming, so I made sure I had everything set where I could actually get to it on a side by side.
I
So
like
I
that.
just bundled up and went. But it's a commitment when you set that trap. Uh, you've got to check it every day,
Yep.
because you might have something, a dog in it. You might have a possum in it, for crying out loud. But a possum is alive. You've got to check and make
Absolutely.
sure and dispatch that animal humanely, or turn him loose if that's what you're going to do. But Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let me give you a
So
little.
the
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I
I was
don't.
just gonna say that the cat deal. I mean, I know that's what when we first talked, that was what you're really interested in. It was the catching the cats. And to me, I mean, that's one of my favorite things to catch is a cat. And as a trapper, a lot of it's not the most bright animal out there as a cat, but they're finicky. I guess a lot of people always said cats are finicky, but they're not really that difficult to catch. They're a more visual animal than a coyote. And a lot of guys I trap for that are like in a trapping class, they always want me to show them how to make cat sets. And I catch as many bobcats in my coyote sets as I do my cat sets, really. And one of the big things with trapping, and I see this, if you get on YouTube, is hanging CDs and all kinds of flyer, stuff and feathers and stuff. I don't use that at all. I'm not saying don't. I mean, you can catch a lot of cats doing that. But I think you can catch just as many in just a regular coyote set. But if you got a lot of stuff, CD hanging or some shiny stuff hanging, feathers and stuff, you're going to spook off a lot of coyotes. So your catch is going to go down.
Huh.
This time of year, from now till the first part of March, these cats are really going to be roaming. And a cat is a true carnivore anyway. So I mean, he's got to eat meat. A coyote is a true is an omnivore. He'll eat corn out from under a feeder and watermelons in the summer, grapes and stuff like that. So they'll eat plants and meat. Thing is, this time of year there is no plants or anything worth eating other than meat. So they all turn to be a true carnivore. But the cats are carnivore 12 months out of the year. This time from January, from right now through first part of March, there'll be a lot of tomcats moving just like a rutting buck. I mean, they're just on the move, moving. And so you'll catch a lot of big toms. And there's a lot of good lure makers out there that's got some really good stuff. And I mean, Wayne Derrick out.
Let us have it as much as you want to share. We're open.
Wayne Derrick out in New Mexico, Derrick's Lures has got some stuff called Bullseye. He's got several good cat stuff, and I've caught cats on all of his stuff. And so a lot of times people will set cat sets and catch coyotes in it. A lot of times people will catch coyotes or set a coyote set and catch a cat in it. The fact of the matter is they're all carnivores. And so don't limit yourself just to cats, because I mean, coyotes to me is a prize because they're so much tougher to catch than a coyote. But a cat, right now through 1st of March, if you want to catch some cats, this is the time of the year to do it because you'll catch them big toms. Get you some good lure. Cavens, I use a lot of Cavens lures. They got some lure called Feline Fix. It's phenomenal. Caught a lot of coyotes on that as well. Because I mean, a coyote smells a cat's been there, he's going to check it out as well. And but you'll probably catch more cats on dedicated cat lure. And then they've got some cat rub lures. And what that is, you can put it on your backing behind your trap, and they like to rub their face on it. And if they're up there rubbing their face, their little feet are going to be right here. So and cats love to rub on that stuff. And they've got some lures with catnip and different stuff like that in it. So if you really want to catch cats, I would say stay away from the flashy stuff, because I think that's going to limit some of your cats. It's going to certainly limit your coyotes. And you'll still catch, I believe you'll catch just as many cats without all the flashy stuff if you've got a good set and a good spot with some good lure on it.
I've experienced that too. I've put CDs up before making cat sets, thinking that was the trick, and caught coons.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah. The same thing that's attracted to that cat, that coon's going to see it. And if you've got a lot of coons, trick I use all the time, it's not really a trick or secret. I take those dog proof traps.
Yes, sir.
And I'll put one 30, 40 yards on either side of my trap and try to catch that coon, keep him from clogging my cat trap or coyote trap up.
That's a good tip. I've never even considered that. I've just fought it the whole time. I'm thinking, golly, I got this nice cat set, good dirt hole, step down, everything.
Walk up, big old boar coon.
Oh, you bet. Every time. Every time.
Yeah. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But I mean, And that's the thing. I got to be there 10 days. I've got to get the numbers.
Yes, sir.
You know, and I can't be catching the coons. I got a place down at Catula I trap, and I told a guy he wanted me down there. I trap for a buddy of his too, and I do their place at the same time. He said, "Look, I want you to come and just do my place one time by yourself." And I told him, I said, "John, he's right there on the Frio River." And I said, "I'm not gonna set a coyote trap the first 2 days. I'm there." He said, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I'm gonna trapping coons the first 2 days." Yeah. And he said, "Well," I said, "Look, I can't catch a coyote till it's on the Frio River. I caught over 100 coons in 7 days off that place."
Good night.
And
see, I gotta catch all those coons out of my deer lease.
Yeah, so kind of what's interesting about your place, Johnny, is that's old peanut fields, and growing up out there, I mean, we would go out in the night and take 20 coons with a shotgun. It was nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So it holds, and it's got good hardwood, you know.
So those dog-proof traps are like $100 and something for a dozen, and get you about 2 or 3 dozen of them and some dog food. I just use dog food and sardines, and I pour the sardines. I'd get me an orange juice jug and put some dog food in it and some sardines, shake that up, just pour it in that dog-proof trap, and they can't keep their little hands out of it.
Yeah, there you go. From the master himself.
You bet.
All right, so Mr. South, let me set up a situation for you and tell you what I'm working with, and then have you explain what you would end up doing. So before I left the state of Washington, and right around during COVID, actually, I wanted to learn a new skill set. In the state of Washington, I had to take a trapper's course to get my trapper's license. And you can't use any foothold traps in the state of Washington. You have to use live cage traps.
Cage trap.
And so I bought myself a cage trap, only one, because let's just say they're expensive, and it took me a while to get into it. And so I got myself a cage trap, and I went out on public land, and I just I bought some lure. I bought a Powder River cat call is what it is.
There you go. Yeah.
And I went on a duck hunt and got some duck carcasses, and I hung some feathers and all this stuff over to right off a logging road, and I saw some cat tracks. Never caught a single thing. Never, no action. Well, I brought this cage down here, and I started diving into the Texas regs, and I realized that you can actually trap bobcats, coons year-round down here, and coyotes.
Sure.
So I'm like, oh man, this is not just a short season where I have to really put in a lot of work now. Like I have a good learning curve to not feel a bunch of pressure to get these animals like instantly. So after deer season for me, I was like, all right, it's time to put out a live trap, because for the very first time on my lease, my game camera picked up a bobcat. And I've seen the tracks out there. I have a big pond, what you guys down here in Texas would consider a lake.
Well, it is. I mean, it's down right now, but yes.
There you go. So I got a lake that is 50 yards from where I saw the bobcat, and it travels this road along the dike, and I was like, well, I'm gonna just go set up my trap. I know I need to build a dark hole. I got a beaver tail that I've been holding on to for a few years, not because I trap beaver, but because 2 beavers crossed the road in front of my old house when I lived in the state of Washington, and I found them. I was like, I need to at least go get some of that meat for bobcat trapping. So I grabbed some of that. I wired it in the back of my cage. I put some scent in the back. I hung some feathers out front, put some scent on the feathers, and waited. And sure enough, I caught my first animal, which was a skunk. Which, by the way, I'm not disappointed in, because I've always actually loved skunk pelts. They're super soft, and this one is beautiful. So Sam taught me a trick to dispatch skunks about needling them with some acetone on a pole, so that way they don't spray. So we got that out. I set up the trap again. And just 2 days ago, that bobcat passed by my camera, but it did not check out the hole of my camera. So now I also didn't set my trap up on a specific game trail.
Right.
Which I think is that kind of like the number one thing you have to be setting your traps up on a game trail.
I have a rule, and I call it the 1, 2, 3 rule. And I want, you have to set on sign. That's an old saying was trapping, set on sign. Lure is good. A lot of people use that as a crutch. They think, well, if they smell that from 40 yards, they're going to go 40 yards and get in your trap. That's not the case most of the time. Now, my 1, 2, 3 rule is I like to have that coyote or cat, when he smells it or sees it, 1, 2, 3, and that third step is I've caught him. So I like to set right close. I set very close. And just think about that. Just in your head, 1, 2, 3 rule. I mean, and it could be 4, 5, 6 or whatever. But if you can set right there, the least trouble he has to get caught, especially a coyote, if his wheels ever start turning, he's just going to get too skittish and he's gone. So I mean, you got to catch him before he knows he's caught.
Interesting.
Cats will just ignore you sometimes. It's one of the most frustrating things. I mean, I've had guys where I'm trapping, they'll put a camera on them, they'll send me pictures where a cat just walked right by my set. It's just frustrating as it can be. They're just so finicky, you know, if they're not in the mood, you know, or just, and their sense of smell is good, but the problem is their brain is not. You know, they're just a dumb animal. And the wind might be going the opposite direction or something. He didn't smell it. But visual is good with cats. I like a big dirt hole for cats. That kind of seems to keep their interest. But the main thing is have it very right on the trail where he don't have to go very far from it. Matter of fact, I'll set traps in the middle of a 2-track. You know, I'll just drive a stake and have I'll check my traps. I'll drive right over, they'll just go right over the truck. If they're going up, if they're going up and down those 2 tracks.
Here's a question for you: is my lease is an active cattle ranch, so I got active cattle, and
that's fun.
As much as I want to, as much as I want to set a track right where I've seen its print, right, trap where you've seen the sign, I also have to manage the cattle that roam.
That's tough.
Do you have any tips for that or recommendations?
Yeah, I do. Cattle are very curious, especially the Angus cattle. I almost refuse to say, if we got a bunch of Angus heifers and I just won't hardly, you just can't keep a trap up and running. But I set real tight to and I guess tighter than most people. And my measurement is this right here. So this is where my lure's at.
So listeners, just to give you a heads up, he's holding out his pinky and his thumb wide. Right. So, okay, go ahead.
So that's where his nose is going to be. That's where my lure and my dirt hole is going to be. And this is where the center of my trap's going to be. And what happens is a coyote or a bobcat's neck is not very long. So if his nose is on your lure or sticking down in that hole, his right foot is going to be right here. Okay. And this is kind of weird, but most coyotes and cats are right-handed like we are. There's more right-handed coyotes than there are left-handed coyotes. And I've always heard that. And I may be repeating a myth or whatever, but if I can send you pictures of coyotes I catch, and 85% of them are caught by the front right foot.
Right foot, yep.
So you don't set that trap in the middle off. You come here and you come back. 9 and 3 is the actual measurement. And I actually will set 7 inches back and 3 inches over, because his 2 feet are going to be on each side of his nose. So he's usually going to lead with that right foot. And I've watched enough of them how they come up there and smell that track. It's true. I mean, they're going to usually have that right foot forward. Bam, I got him. So back to the cows. A lot of guys will set too far back because you get to overthinking this deal, and you think, well, if he's going to my trap, I can get all 4 feet over that trap if I set it back here. I got his front feet, and I got a chance maybe I can catch his hind feet. Well, you'll catch a lot of cows and deer and everything else back there too. But if you'll set that trap up close, that trap is probably only going to catch you'll have less cows and deer and stuff getting into it.
So 7 inches back from the Now, are you digging a hole? And
Yeah,
so how deep of a hole, or does it just needs to be a little bit or
I've got a little auger. You can order it from these trapping supply deals, and I've got them from 1 inch all the way up to 3 inch or so. But it's just an auger, and you just run it on a drill, and I just drill my hole down in the ground about that deep. And you don't want to drill it straight in, kind of dig it at an angle, so he's got to come up and look down in that hole. So dig it at about probably a little more than a 45-degree angle. And then if you're going to get a lot of rain, I'll pull a rock or a limb or something up there to try to keep the rain out of that hole. And I'll actually stick lure under that as well, or on top of it. But if it's going to rain, like we just had a bunch of bad weather, I'll usually get me some backing, and I'll rub the lure on it and flip it over so it kind of rainproofs it. And then I'll have that kind of cover that hole and kind of rainproofs that hole. And if you use feathers, a lot of guys will use sheep's wool and something you can stick down in that hole with some lure on it. And I use a coffee can or a coffee filter for a pan cover over my trap. And so I used to carry feathers and all that kind of stuff. And all I do now is if it's going to rain, to protect my lure, I'll take a coffee filter and I'll break me a little stick and I'll put my lure in that coffee filter and I'll shove it down in that hole. And so that coffee filter is white.
Yeah.
And it's I'll kind of crinkle it up and stick me some stuff in there and stick it down that hole. And I'll kind of rainproof your lure inside that coffee filter. And it also is a visual, he'll see that white in there and he'll think, oh, that's a bird or something. I don't know what they think, but they'll make them want it, So I go through a lot of coffee filters, but I just use a little 1 to 4 cup coffee filters.
Yeah.
And it works very well.
Man. Okay, so that answers the question about the cows on the lease that I was concerned about. You're already talking about all these different things. What I need to just go out and get some traps is really what it comes down to.
That was going to be one of my questions. What's your foothold of choice?
MB 550.
Yes, sir.
Hands down.
That's what I told you. I told you, Johnny.
Are you anchoring these to a tree with a cable?
Oh, let me turn this light back on.
Are you anchoring these to a tree, or are you using one of those T anchors that you pound into the ground?
I use a lot of earth anchors, but I would rather use a chain. And chain's expensive, but you only have to buy it one time. I buy a chain in 100-foot rolls, and I cut it up in 10-foot lengths. And the reason I do that, if I can get by without using an earth anchor, because what happens is when you use an earth anchor, your trap is right there. So when you catch something, you have a catch circle there, and it's really messed up everything. I catch a lot in remakes. After I catch something, I'll remake that set. So if you've got an earth anchor, you've got a mess to clean up there. And a lot of times a coyote will come into that catch circle, he'll go around the edge of it, and he won't ever come in there. So if you're using an earth anchor, set on the downwind side of that catch circle, because when they come up there, they won't go in that catch circle a lot of times. Sometimes they will, but most times they'll go around it, and you'll catch him outside that catch circle. So I've started using chains several years ago, and I love them. They're a pain in the butt because they're heavy, and you get 60 or 70 10-foot chains,
Right.
That's a lot to deal with. But the benefit to it is I will anchor my trap off behind the trap, 5-6 feet, but I've got 10 foot of chain. When I catch that coyote there, first thing he does is hit the end of that chain and go back the other way, and he's usually tangled up back in the brush, and my trap bed is still pristine. So I'll pull him out of there, and if the trap's messed up, I'll replace the trap, stick it right back in that same bed, and I'm going in 10 minutes. I don't have to clean nothing up.
I've got a good question for you.
Okay.
What do you do about if you get a trap dug up?
Ooh.
It's a tough one.
Keep trying. Keep trying, or figure. Yeah, a lot of times, if you got possums and armadillos and coons and stuff, a lot of times they'll get, especially an armadillo, he'll get his nose under it and flip it out of there. If they're digging it up, you gotta either your trap's not clean. There's a lot of different reasons why they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's not bedded correctly. Like if they step on it and it moves, they'll dig it up. They'll flip it out of there. So to avoid that, the best thing is, and I use, I'm all about efficiency, and a lot of guys are still dying and waxing their traps. I hate wax. I'll never use it again. I don't have any on my place. Wax, that's the reason they make candles out of it, because it holds scent.
Yes, sir.
And it's a pain in the butt to work with. I use high traffic floor polish.
Really?
They sell it in trap and supply deals. It's called Full Metal Jacket. All it is you can go to Lowe's and get it. It's called Zepp's High Traffic Floor Polish. It's the same shiny stuff you see on the floor in Walmart. So what I do is when I get a brand new set of traps, I put them in the dishwasher. People say, well, what about your wife? I bought the dishwasher. I'll put the traps in it.
Amen.
And I can put up to 24 traps in a dishwasher and get them clean where they're pristine. And I got the dry cycle on there. I run them twice through that dishwasher, get all the oil and grease off of it where it's just pure metal. And they'll rust almost immediately, get a little surface rust on them. And then if you've got time, one of the best things to do is boil them in some. I take green oak leaves or hardwood leaf and boil it. And then you got to have a little bit of rust. But what that tannic acid or that whatever it just turns black as ink, that water does. And it'll chemically somehow transform that rust into just a hard, it makes it almost where it won't rust. But you've got to boil them in that and get them black, and then wash them off and get them good and dry. And if there's not much rust on there, they won't dye very well. But then I'll dip them in that high traffic floor polish. It just looks like milk, and you just dip it in it, let it kind of drip dry and hang it, drip chain and all. And a brand new trap, I'll dip 3 times in about 30 minutes to an hour. If it's warm out, they'll be dry enough to dip again. But I'll put 3 coats of that dip on there, and that trap will fire fast, and it's got that shell around it, and it's scent free in 24 hours, and it don't hold scent. It's just hard as a rock, and it's wonderful stuff. And 2, I've got a lot of traps that I've painted. Probably about half of mine are painted, because if I don't have time, and in the summertime when it's real hot, I'll clean them in the dishwasher, and then I take them out, and I'll take Rust-Oleum, buy the good stuff, get you some good Rust-Oleum paint, and paint that whole trap. I use an OD green. You can do them. There's a lady in Arkansas that's doing all hers. They call her Trapper Chick. All hers are pink, bright pink. So
that's good
she
info.
don't get her traps mixed up. But you just paint them like that. But the thing about paint, you're gonna have to let it really air out for, I'd say, a good month. Make sure it's not smelling like paint.
Yes, sir.
And then dip them. And probably most of mine now are painted, and that'll deter a lot of that rust and keep that trap, new.
Okay, here's a question for you, because this is something that I do not understand. You're talking about when you are putting that polish on these traps, it helps it to actually activate a lot quicker, correct?
Yeah, it'll make it kind of serves as a barrier for that moisture too, but it'll actually help it fire
because
a little faster too.
Because if it truly rusts up, then that gives friction and it causes
it'll slow it
not.
down.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So are these sets or these traps that you can buy, whether online or at a local store, are they set exactly how, like, OEM, that's what you want, or are you tinkering with these to activate?
That's why I like the 550s. They're ready to go right out of the box. And I'll tell you this, the rage nowadays, a lot of guys are going to these dog-proof traps, and they're fantastic. Everybody says, oh, they got a bigger kill area on them and all. Well, not really, because an MB 550 is 5.5 inch trap, and it's got a little pan about 2 inches or so. But if he steps anywhere in that deal, he's going to fire that trap. So the other thing about a 550, if you're around deer, which you're going to be in East Texas or anywhere in Texas, deer or exotics, MB 550, the 550 size trap doesn't catch real high. And if you get a big trap, a lot of guys, especially new trappers, they want to get them big 6 and 7 inch traps. And the problem is that jaw, when it comes up, it will get over a deer's ankle or that little joint. And so you can hold deer, you can actually hold deer. They'll most of the time get out, but a 550 is real safe around deer and stuff, but it still catches above that wrist on a coyote or a bobcat. So that takes me to my next deal. If your 550s, when you run them for a while, those springs will get weak on them. And sometimes you can get a batch that's kind of weak, but you want that pan tension to be about 4 pounds. And the reason being, I mean, like a lot of guys will check their traps. I used to do it too. You check it, see what it is. And it's 3 pounds. I got to get more on it. Well, the time you set it and bed it and it sets there a while, a 3 pound trap's going to be 4 pounds. Once you get it bedded and everything's in there, and if it's real cold or whatever. But I like the MB 550s. I hadn't checked any in years, but last time I was checking them, they're about 3.5 pounds. But what that does, a lot of guys, I was helping a lady out at Rock Springs here the other day, and she wanted me. She was struggling, so I went out there for a couple of days and helped her kind of get squared away. Her traps, man. I was bedding them traps. She goes, I can't believe you're getting your hands all in there, and boy, I hit one of them, and man, it went off, threw dirt in my face. I got to checking her traps, and she had them all just hair trigger, She goes, I thought that's where they need to be. Well, you'll catch a lot of toes and you'll miss a lot because they're not committed. You want that full foot down on that trap, so you catch them above that wrist. And with 4 pounds, and 2, you'll keep a lot of them grinners or possums and stuff out if you've got some weight on there. And 6, 7 pounds is not too much, really.
Gotcha.
So, because it'll keep a lot of that trash out of your traps.
Yep.
Having more pan tension.
I love that. Question going back to the whole cables or chains, anchors. Are you covering your entire chain? Or are you just covering like about a foot off with the trap, or what are you doing?
Yeah, 1.5 feet or so. And that was funny. That lady out there at Rock Springs, she kind of commented. She goes, "Oh," she said, "I didn't know you didn't have to bury that whole chain." I said, "I don't know what that chain is." I mean, he don't care. But wherever I set to dig my make my set, I'll take, and I use a brick hammer is what I use to dig because they're kind of a hardened steel and it's got a real good cutter on it. So I can cut roots or bust rocks with it. It's not too heavy. But I'll take that brick hammer and just cut me a little trench to lay my chain in and to my trap bed. And then I set that in there and I bury it about as far as I can reach. That's it. And if it bothers you, if there's a lot of traffic there, I say oil field people or whatnot, you don't want that chain shining because they'll see it and they'll start messing with your crap. So I would cover it for the people more than I would the animals.
Interesting. So, this is great insight. Okay, so when you identify a spot, like, okay, I was at home with my kids. My cell cam went off. It said a picture. I was like, dude, there was a bobcat that walked right by minutes ago. And if I know that there's a bobcat in the area, from the time that you say, okay, I'm going out there, how soon do you expect to actually get one caught? Or what are they on a cycle? Or I know you're saying toms or cruising right now, but
the females really don't go very far. I mean, if they've got all they need, they're close. I mean, they'll hang out like a house cat, in a pretty good little small spot. And I look for what they call cat toilets, where you find a lot of scat. Like there was one on the place down at Pearsall. I told the guy, I said, "Man, I'm gonna catch a bunch of cats here." He goes, "What?" I said, "Man, there's a cat toilet right here in the road. I mean, it's just covered in cat scat." And I caught 7 cats there in probably 4 days.
Wow.
But look for that kind of stuff, and that's usually a female and some kittens or something, and sometimes there was a lot of cats right there. I've caught several cats there since then too. I always catch cats there, but And I mean, I had them down the road in the middle of a 2-track. So that's neat to pull up and you got 3 cats lined up down a deal. But tomcats, God only knows. They just roam, especially this time of year. If you catch a cat on a camera, if you can you'll develop an eye. You'll say, that's a big tomcat. You can set a trap there and it might be a month. You might never see that cat again. I mean, females, usually if she's hanging out in an area, you'll know it. You'll catch her on camera quite often, and you can generally catch that one. But the thing is, I mean, you'll catch that big tomcat too, because that's what he's looking for. I mean, is her. But I mean, and I look for cattier spots, and it's kind of hard to explain because every region in Texas is kind of different what the cats like. Like, say, like out at Rock Springs, they like a lot of rocks and stuff because mice and stuff will get in those crevices and stuff. They like that. In East Texas, they like the thickets, I think the cats here eat a lot of birds and stuff, so they like to snag them. And they like to walk roads, cats do, roads and thick stuff because if you ever felt of a cat's foot, it's real tender, it's real soft. It's not hard like a coyote's pad. And they like a sandy road, and that's the reason their tracks are so hard to see, is because their feet are so soft. But if you can find some soft, they like to walk on the soft stuff like sandy roads and stuff. But
here's a question. Here's a question for you. I was listening to a trapping podcast, and they were talking about trapping bobcats, and this guy was talking about how he likes to direct where he wants the cats to step, and it went based off of the softness of their pads. And he actually will take sticks and stick them vertically out of the ground to make sure that they step in a certain pattern. Do you ever do anything like that?
I have, but it'll kind of, cats a lot of times will go in sideways too to a trap. I don't use the sticks as much as I used to. I tell you the truth, I don't think it really mattered that much, but you're going to spook the heck out of a coyote. You start sticking rocks and stuff to put in there. But if that trap is set like that, you know where he's going to step right here. If his nose is here, his foot's going to be right there. So, I mean, I don't use the stepping sticks and I used to go all the way around my trap and poke stuff up, to make him step right there. And a lot of guys, and I'll still do it sometimes. You take your fingers like this. I don't know if you can see how you can make a perfect cat track with the end of your fingers. And sometimes I'll put a cat track right on my pad.
That's a good idea. I like that.
But I mean, who knows if that works or not? But I mean, if a cat sees that, he may just I can step there too.
Oh yeah, familiarity. I like that. Yeah. Being a trapper, is it an automatic like? What's the term I'm looking for? To be a trapper, do you have to learn how to tan hides? Is that a part of being a trapper?
No, and I mean, it's a fun exercise, but what I do, and let's differentiate. There's fur trappers and there's ADC trappers. Fur trappers hate us because we're catching coyotes in the summertime when they're thinking, well, if I caught that same coyote in the fall, he'd be worth money, and you're just a waste. You're a scourge of the earth. They used to really give us a hard time. But in the state of Texas, the way the fur prices are, I just, I've got a buyer for my cats, but my coyotes, you can't run fast enough to give them to somebody. And if you catch a big, pretty black coyote or something, something unique, my advice is to skin it or take it to the taxidermist, let him do it, and send it off and have it professionally tanned. You'll have something really nice that's going to last, because tanning is an art and a process. I mean,
right.
And I've done it in the past, but I've got a friend of mine now, and I'll mention his name because his name is Cody Demos. Y'all don't know if y'all ever heard of, if you keep up with rodeo, but Cody's been in the national finals 14, 15 times. runner up for a world title 5 times. He never won a world title. He missed it by $200 one time.
Wow.
But Cody Demos is a legendary bronc rider, and he's been coming trapping with me. And Cody's a great friend. And anyway, he finally retired from riding saddle bronc horses and picked up full-time trapping. He's in Mexico right now on a place, and I just caught him a line.
Wow. Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so he just sent me a picture of this big, huge line. I said, are they going to let you take the line out? He goes, they're not going to have a choice. He said, I got him stretched out. And he said, I'm killing some coons in the morning and going to get their brains and have him all tan. He said, I'm making me a vest out of that line.
Wow.
I'm wearing that vest back. So when Cody Demos comes back, he's down there 30 days. And so when he comes back, he's going to be wearing a line vest when he comes out of Mexico.
That's a feather in your hat right there.
Dude, that is
Yes, sir.
awesome. That is
Yes, sir.
awesome.
And Cody's good. Cody's a hardworking, good guy too.
Well, it sounds like we all need to get together for a good time, huh? That would be awesome. Sam, do you got any questions for Byron?
My biggest question was just getting the trap dug up, because I've had it happen, and I know it was a dog.
It's going to happen.
I know it was a dog, and I did end up catching him.
Good.
I left the trap dug. He revisited the set, and I put one off to the side, and I got him.
Amen. There you go.
And it was a challenge. He dug it up 3 times.
And just so you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still get some dug up every now and then. And that's, about the best remedy is leave it there, or reset it and set you one back.
Yes, sir.
Just in a blind set. Yeah.
Okay, so just to recover everything that we talked about tonight, you like to go get an auger. You like to drill it about 1.5 foot deep, a little 1 to 3 inch hole. You like to stuff it with some lure, and 6 inches back and 3 inches off is
9 and 3.
9 and 3. But
7 to 9.
7 and
no
9.
further than 9.
Okay, 7
and 9. Yeah.
7 and 9 off the hole, 3 inches to the side, and you're burying your trap, and bada bing, bada boom. Before long, there's got to be something that's caught, especially if you're putting it on a high traffic area.
That's right. And good lure, I'll tell you this. Use good lure, commercial lure. There's some of the best in the world. We are so fortunate today to have that stuff just readily available. It's not cheap, but go ahead and get you some good lure. And I'll tell you this, one of the biggest mistakes new trappers make, happens all the time, is messing with a set that they've already got set. That lure will last through some hellacious weather. The worst is heat. Texas heat, when it's 100 degrees, you might want to rebait once a week. Real dry weather, if it's really arid, you might want to rebait once a week. But my rule of thumb is, when I set a trap, I don't rebait it for the whole 10 days that I'm there, 14 days. I know it's baited and lured good. And a lot of times it's usually that second and third day when things really start coming together and firing, because I don't care how scent free you are, that you're not going to set a trap that a coyote doesn't know you've been there. Once you understand how well a coyote can smell, a drug dog can smell a trace of marijuana or cocaine in a 55-gallon drum full of water. Well, a coyote's nose is every bit as good as a drug dog's nose. So there's nothing you can do that coyote doesn't know you've been there.
Yeah.
The benefit to that good lure is that lure will outlast your scent. So once you get there, get everything set as quickly as you can and efficiently, and get out of there, but lure that really well. Always have your lure on the backing or down in the hole. I usually put a bait down in the hole, which is different than a lure. I only do that when it's cold like this. Texas is kind of finicky, because like if it really warms up, you got a lot of bugs, dung beetles down there where I'm going this Monday, or a lot of dung beetles, and they'll just carry that bait right out of the hole, right over the top of your trap, and this makes a mess. So I don't use any bait in a hole like that, but I will put that lure on a
coffee filter
and poke it in there, and they have a hard time getting that out. But something down in the hole, and then I usually put a gland type lure, especially this time of year. I use a gland type lure behind the hole, on my backing. And And
Gotcha.
then urine. There's another thing. Coyote or bobcat urine or fox urine. There's certain times that I use it. This time of year, I use a lot of urine because they're breeding and mating, and they're getting more territorial as you get into the spring. So I'll use urine earlier in the year. I don't use much urine, especially October, November, December, because every little horny buck thinks it's a scrape, and he's got to make a scrape right on top of your set. So I don't use much lure or urine at that time. When it gets cold like this, and after the deer quit rutting, from now through March, I'll use a lot of urine. But just another thing is, don't put too much of it on there. The hardest thing for people to understand is how well they can smell. Just a little bit, because if he can smell it and get his satisfaction back here, he's not going to get in your trap. You want just a little trace of that lure there. And believe me, he's going to smell it. I'm talking about the size of a pea or a bean. If you'll just smear that on there and it's a good lure, and turn it over on something where it doesn't get rain on it. If it's real arid, it'll keep the sun off of it and keep it a little moist too. But just about the size of between a pea and a bean, that's all you need, because you want him all the way to it. And if you got too much on there, he can get his nose full out here and never get in your trap.
A little dab will do you. There we
People
go.
think, oh, a little bit's good. A lot's a lot better. No, it's not.
Right.
It's not.
Especially as of what it cost.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah. You don't want to see my bill.
Oh man. Okay. Is there anything else that you feel like we didn't cover that you just want to throw out there? Just
I did. Yes, I want to. I tell this every time I do a podcast. Guys need to have realistic expectations. We live in a world where you think you're going to catch something in every trap every day. It ain't going to happen. Don't get frustrated. Keep at it. Your first one's your hardest. After that, and the next thing I want to tell people is don't overthink it. This is, if you use good common sense and think it through and pay attention to the details, you'll be a successful trapper.
I love that. I overthought where I put my live cage trap at.
You did.
That's all right. Oh man. Rather than just being
and hard work. There's no replacement for hard work. Trapping is hard work.
Yeah, that is true. Do you ever, just last question I have for you, do you ever just use fence lines or like a pinch point
Sure.
and put it off of a fence post, or more in the center where they're walking?
I use a lot of snares. Down, a lot of these places I trap are high fence, and so I mean that's mostly where I'm dealing with fences is snares, and that's a whole podcast in itself. Snares.
Well, I think we might have to get that one going then at some point. Yeah,
but I mean Cody, he's down there, a 60,000 acre ranch, and he's going, man, everything you told me, is ringing back in my head now, and now it makes sense what you were telling me. And he caught that line. I'm so proud of him. That's awesome.
It is awesome.
That's awesome.
Fence lines, any kind of a natural boundary, coyotes like that.
Perfect.
Roads, intersections, tree lines, things like that.
Okay.
Fence lines.
Good to know. Well, Mr. South, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wonderful knowledge. I'm really excited for us to get together again. I missed you this year at the Dallas Safari Club convention, but
I hate it. Yeah.
It's just such a pleasure to be in community with people like yourself. So thank you. And Sam, thanks for being here tonight to be a part of this.
Really enjoyed it.
I really want to get us dialed in and get together sometime and go experience the wild with you at some point. We'll talk about that off the air. But guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Share it with all your people. Don't be afraid to get into trapping. Expand your horizons as an outdoorsman. Be better as a woodsman, and really start to understand the game and the quarry that we chase. Be blessed. Know that life is happening for you, not happening to you. As always, freedom on, everybody. I'm Johnny Mack, Sam Singleton, Byron South. Be blessed and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating, as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group. As I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode, so stay tuned and stay soulful.